My name is Charles Mono. I'm from Switzerland originally and came to Doolin 18 years ago. And I took up the music, then started playing the concertina. And now, 18 years later, I'm a full-time musician. We're now on the outskirts of Doolin in Donegal. The castle is just there, and the house down below is where the Russells were born. That's their home cottage. Micho, Paki, Gussie, and also their two sisters, Mary Kate and Bridget.
A backpacking holiday in Ireland as a teenager for Charles Mono has led to a lifelong love of Irish traditional music.
From very early on, after discovering Irish music, I was very interested in older recordings and older tunes, and it stayed with me for a long time. And I was lucky enough to go to college in the Irish World Academy in Limerick a few years ago. And that gave me time to focus on research, archive work, and this project I'm doing now is the fruition of years of thinking, and I want to do that for a long time, but just never had the time, so now is the time.
That research project involves gathering any material associated with one of Irish traditional music's best known and possibly most influential families in this area. The Russells of Doolin Project is an online archive of material associated with the brothers Micho, Paki and Gussie Russell.
As you know, there's archives in Dublin, in the main archive there. Cortes has a lot of stuff, but there's also a community aspect to it, with loads of people have private recordings, photos, there's articles. So I'm compiling everything and curating, choosing which ones I'm going to put up on this website. That's going to be there for everyone to see and learn about the Russells, where they came from, their history and their heritage. This one's a postcard from Eindhoven in Holland that was sent to Paki.
So far, over 200 different pieces of material has been added to the online archive.
The date is on it, 17th of October 1972.
Ranging from postcards sent by friends from abroad to the Russells, to letters, to interviews, and of course, many, many pieces of music. Some of the material donated to Charles' archive came from recordings made by Dick Grant and another young and aspiring musician from Dublin.
Sin ceann seo le Micho, Micho agus a cardja.
Eugene Lamb is today a well-known uilleann pipe maker and musician. But he and Dick Grant recognised a fast-changing world in North Clare in the 1980s and took it upon themselves to record some of the musicians of the area. Among them were the brothers Jack and Paddy Killoury. They lived in the hill above Liscannor in the townland of Ballyfordine.
Well, I made the first violin I played in.
Did you?
I did.
And did it work?
It was a nice violin.
Uh-huh.
And I tuned it and nobody showed me how to tune it. I strung it up and tuned it.
Surrounded by an array of clocks and songbirds that they fed in the house.
The bagging of years ago, it's been over 100 years ago.
They were accomplished musicians, clock fixers, and musical instrument makers.
But the house was full of clocks, all ticking away at different times, because John was a wizard. He wrote to different places. He'd write to America for parts of a clock. Before there was the internet or anything, he'd get all these bits from all over the world, and he worked on these wind-up gramophones. He was a technical genius, big, heavy hands, but wonderful with his hands. And then they had birds all over the place, singing birds. In some of the videos, you can hear the birds. When they hear the music, they'll be going crazy. So, and the big lump, of course, the pig was up in the ceiling, and yeah.
Doolin was once an Irish-speaking area. Dick Grant and Eugene Lamb also recorded Paddy Shannon in his thatch house in Doolin. Paddy was said to be the last native Irish speaker in Doolin.
Bhí éadach troch éadach an nuair sin na daoine. Cuilem héine go don héin go déin is sciirte bhí an de rimme an a bhór fad, cóta
Paddy never took a drink in his life, but he used to go out at night time and he'd bless all the cars of the people who in the pub, and he put you know when they'd sort of the haw would come on the windscreen, he'd put a little cross on it. He'd say, "Good dia slán while you shiv," and the lads inside never knew they were being blessed. But that was Paddy's job every night, making sure they got home safely. Yeah, he was a lovely man.
Micho Russell was a well-known personality at that time. His two brothers, Paki and Gussie, were also gifted musicians, and they were also recorded by the long-sighted amateur social historians.
Micho was the one that got most publicity because he travelled. Micho could be coming down the Castle Hill one morning with a little plastic bag, and John Griffin said to him, John was the stonemason that did the work on Doolin Castle, said, "Where are you going, Micho?" And Micho said, "I'm off to Germany." He didn't say Germany, he said Germany, with his little plastic bag, you know, and he'd come back then and he'd go do his playing in places with 1,000 people. So they'd start coming to Doolin. I mean, it was so bad one day we used to call them the Vazendoolins. See, because where were you? I Vazendoolin, they'd say, because they're German accents, you know, so they called them Vazendoolins. So he brought the music of Doolin onto a world stage. And he was on a stage even in America once with Bob Dylan. He didn't know who Bob Dylan was. He thought the big crowd that was there for him. You know, it's sort of simplicity, but great stories about that sort of stuff. Of course, I'd be thinking, I'm sorry I didn't do more, you know, because I was trying to run a business at the time, and although there's about 13 hours of recordings, it took weeks because I had to visit the people and talk them into it, and maybe get a flute and bring it back here and work out in the workshop to get it working good for the recording, and you know, plough moss people and tell them it's for the archives. We're not making any money out of it, and everybody was lovely. They were great. And they were very excited as well. It was a bit like having the stations in the house, you know, when we go there and record them. They were getting sort of credibility and loved it really.
The Dick Grant and Eugene Lamb Archive is an invaluable resource that captures a very different time and society in Ireland. The collection has been made available to Cuine von Chloyd, a voluntary group whose aim is to record the people and stories of County Clare in a publicly available archive.
That's the website.
The recordings of the Russells of Doolin have also now been made available to the online archive curated by a Swiss traditional Irish music enthusiast.
Archives, in my opinion, are only useful if they're alive, if somebody's using them. Because if they're just they're dormant, silent, and nobody's using anything, no one's learning anything. And these lads had tunes that we don't play anymore. And not only them, there's other musicians, of course. In Doolin, it happened that the three of them were the most iconic musicians of the area. And actually their life story is pretty funny when you know how different each brother was to the others. And yeah, making the archive alive is a way of continuing that tradition.